Hey, what's up guys? Thanks a lot for watching. This is Hector again, and here's my latest review. I hope you enjoy it. Today I will be talking about Lucy, the new Scarlett Johansson film. And yes, I'll say up front that I actually liked this movie, so this is going to be a positive review. But I also had some problems with it, so I will go over some of the positives and negatives with this movie, at least in my opinion. The film deals with a young woman by the name of Lucy who suddenly starts to experience a powerful change in her brain, and she begins to unlock her brain power very quickly, increasing more and more as the movie goes on. Early on, we see Professor Norman, played by Morgan Freeman, giving a presentation at a university where he's talking about evolution, but especially the brain, and mentions that humans only use 10% of their brain power, and speculates about what might happen if that percentage increased. That in itself is the premise of this movie. We are invited to witness what happens when a person is able to use not only more than 10%, but eventually 100%. Anyway, the character of Lucy, who is played by Scarlett Johansson, is portrayed in a less than ideal way at first. The beginning of the movie seems to imply that she isn't very smart, to say the least. So that's basically where Lucy's brain power starts, God knows why. Although she doesn't really look in terrible shape, she just looks like a normal, although a bit trashy, 20-something naive young woman who is having an argument with her boyfriend, or someone who might be her boyfriend. Long story short, she is pressured, to say the least, into delivering a briefcase to someone inside of a building, for which she is paid $500 in advance. Needless to say, she gets more than she bargained for when her boyfriend is shot and killed right outside of the building, and she is taken hostage by a large group of armed men, and then taken by elevator to a higher floor, where she still has to deliver the briefcase. And the briefcase actually contains bags of a really powerful drug, and one of those bags is later surgically implanted inside her body, right next to her stomach, and she is told, after she wakes up from surgery, to go to the airport, take a plane, and deliver the drug to someone in another country. However, it seems like those same people also wanted to have their way with her before she got on a plane, so before dropping her off at the airport, they take her into an empty room and she is chained to a wall. Moments later, a man, probably one of her kidnappers, punches her in the face and then kicks her in the stomach several times, hence releasing some of the drug into her system. Initially, her body starts going through shock and she starts convulsing as a result of being exposed to the drug for the first time. But it's not only that, for it seems like a very large dose was released into her body, making the effects all the more powerful. And so the drug begins to affect her brain right away. Moments later, after the initial shock to her body finally passes, she seems to be not only smarter, but also physically stronger and deadly, as she quickly frees herself and kills her captors. I know it seems like a lot, but no, I'm not giving anything away. That was all practically in the trailer. And Lucy then decides to extract the bag of drugs, or what remains of it, from her body at a local hospital. Anyway, that's pretty much it. You just have to see the rest for yourself. I will try to give my opinion without giving away any spoilers. Okay, so let's get to it. I will start by saying that, well, I actually liked this movie. Yes, but it wasn't as good as I had hoped. It gave me the impression that a really good idea was wasted, or at the very least, not put on film in the right way. I say that because, well, there are many good scenes in this movie, together with great acting and dialogue. Scarlett Johansson proves yet again how good of an actress she is, not only at portraying someone in distress, but also someone extremely dangerous and in control. But it seems like those scenes didn't have a better script to make better sense of them. First of all, the movie starts way too fast. We are barely introduced to Lucy seeing her argue outside of a building with her boyfriend, and then the action starts. There's no build-up. I know some movies have done it before, but they also took time to introduce the main characters. Lucy, on the other hand, just gets into the action along with the main character, with no character development, no build-up, no backstory, nothing. I guess the beginning of the movie was meant to imply confusion and turn into an adrenaline rush right from the start. But one thing is a character like Lucy going through that experience herself in the movie, and another totally different is instilling that kind of confusion on the audience. The beginning of the movie is meant to be very powerful, but it doesn't feel right, and it's not very meaningful because we don't know the characters yet, And what's worse, the movie just continues on from that point, barely slowing down. This movie seems to focus on violence and action scenes, and those scenes are very well done, but there is no suspense or build up to anything. None of the action scenes are set up in a way that we can enjoy them when they finally arrive. They sort of just happen. I got the same feeling with this movie as the time I went to see World War C. Well, actually, I think Lucy is a much better film than World War C. However, both films are similar in the sense that they showed a lot of action with little or no build-up, and as a result, none of the action really means anything, or at least for the most part. There's maybe one or two moments in Lucy when the movie slows down a bit, and there's some reflection about what's going on, like when Lucy decides to call her mother from the hospital and tell her about the changes she's going through and that she loved her. It was a very powerful scene, but there's not enough of them. Not to mention the movie's only an hour and a half, which makes everything seem even more rushed. And by the end, well, I was entertained. The movie was incredibly beautiful to watch, and Scarlett Johansson was great in it. But I was left wondering what it all meant, or what exactly I had just watched. In my opinion, before we can feel excitement about a movie, or at the very least care about the film, we first have to care about the characters and what's happening to them. We have to get to know them first in some way or another. This film just seems to assume that we already do, so no introductions are made. It's like we are watching the second half of a movie that already started, and we missed all the introductions and backstory that happens at the beginning. Something else that bothered me a little bit about this movie is how it quickly turns into a full-blown science fiction film, even though it seems to start in a very gritty, violent, and realistic world. It quickly turns into a movie with an over-the-top female character with superhuman abilities who no one will be able to stop, especially men. We have all seen this type of characters before, like with Alice in Resident Evil, or Catherine in Aeon Flux, or hell, even the girls from Charlie's Angels would be a good example. Yes, those movies and those types of characters are fun to watch, but this film implied it was all going to be something different, or at least something a bit more down to earth and realistic. And it just takes a leap into absolute movie fantasy, where Lucy is so far removed from the real world, it's nearly impossible to relate to her character in any shape, way, or form. Aside from the hospital scene that I mentioned previously, where she calls her mother, there isn't much else that makes her human. She turns, almost from the start, into a comic book character. A no-nonsense, attractive as hell comic book character, but a comic book character nonetheless. Anyway, I know it seems like I'm probably being too hard on this film, but it's not my intention. Like I said before, I liked this movie, but it had flaws that were just too obvious to ignore. This movie could have been so much better. It had so much potential, and I'm afraid it fell short in a lot of ways. One of them, like I mentioned previously, was the running time. The movie is only about an hour and a half. This movie should have been at least 2 hours, if not more. That way, the character of Lucy could have been explored in more detail. Also, there should have been more information about the drug itself that caused such an incredible change in Lucy. There are so many questions that are not even brought up. If the drug affected Lucy in such a powerful way, then there should have been people like her all over the place. There must have been druggies or junkies consuming that drug like crazy already, so what happened? They just got high and nothing else? That drug was supposed to be very popular already, so what the hell is going on? At the beginning of the movie, we see one of those junkies, but he just looks like a regular drug addict. No superhuman abilities, no increased intelligence, nothing. It doesn't make sense, really. Anyway, now that those problems with the movie are out of the way, let's focus on the positives. First, like some of you might have guessed, Scarlett Johansson, who plays Lucy, is the main attraction of this film, and is very well deserved. I just don't have enough praise for her. She goes from playing scared and vulnerable, as well as unsure of herself, to being in total control, and absolutely dangerous, not to mention deadly. And she is absolutely convincing in both extremes. Also, let me mention briefly that when I first saw the movie, I was tempted to say that her acting, or performance in general, had taken a back seat to all the special effects later in the movie. But now that I think about it, that's actually not true. She is part of the special effects, the action, and very much a part of the whole ending of the film. She was a very crucial part of it. Scarlett Johansson did an amazing job with the material she was given, and she is the main reason why I liked this movie. She carries the film and saves it from becoming a boring mess. I really can't think of any other actress who could have played Lucy. This was perfect casting in my opinion. Something else I liked about this movie is that it was rated R. Yes, someone actually had the balls to release this movie with an R rating. It was not watered down to a PG-13, which usually happens with a lot of big movie releases. This one actually goes for the action and violence the way this type of movie is supposed to show it, and that makes a big difference because there's not a lot of movies like this around. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about the movie in a technical sense. The movie was very well directed, the special effects were handled very well, and they were not repetitive, as we actually saw something different as the movie went on. The action scenes and fights, not to mention car chases, were spectacular, and the cinematography was truly deserving of praise. The whole movie looked great. It didn't matter where a scene took place, whether in a holding cell, a fancy hotel, a taxicab, a hospital, during the day, or in the middle of the night. The movie was shot perfectly. This is one of those films that really demonstrates how good a movie can look nowadays. Speaking of that, this movie was directed by Luc Besson, who also directed the films The Fifth Element and The Professional, just to name a few. So he knows a thing or two about making a movie look good, not to mention directing great action scenes and showing strong female characters on screen. And when it comes to directing Lucy, he didn't disappoint. The whole movie is a roller coaster ride from beginning to end. No, the script was not perfect, but he made it look damn good, that's for sure. Well, that's it for this review. I talked about most of what I liked and didn't like about this movie. So I'll just finish by saying that even though I had some problems with it, I actually liked the film a lot. Don't get me wrong, this is not a bad movie. It's very good, and I actually recommend it. This is one of Scarlett Johansson's best films, and it also has one of her best performances. She alone makes this movie worthwhile. Yes, the script could have been a little bit better, but again, this is not a bad movie. It is actually quite good. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, I give this movie an 8. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Bye.
What did you do to me?
Something very special.
It is said that we humans only use 10% of our brain.
Now let's discuss a special case.
Lucy.
Somebody put a bag of drugs inside me. I need you to take it out. It's leaking. I have access to 28% of my brain's capacity.
Since when did you start writing Chinese?
Since an hour ago.
Her brain capacity is increasing by the minute. You can unlock secrets that go beyond our universe. I'm not even sure that mankind is ready for it.
What happens when she reaches 100%?
I have no idea.